Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at etrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Roadmaster Diode Wiring on a 2018 Jeep Wrangler JK. Diode wiring is definitely becoming the normal trend when it comes to flat towing vehicles. The other alternatives are going to be magnetic lights, which those work fine, but the problem is newer vehicles, and especially Jeeps, a lot of them aren't magnetic, so you're not going to be able to have those be able to stick on there, and then you're still having to drape that wire every time you want to hook up, and then you have to store them, where diodes, once you have them installed, you just plug in your umbilical and they're ready to go. Now when it comes to flat towing any vehicle, there's going to be 5 main components that are going to be required. And these are just the basics that you'll have to have. There's going to be a few other things that you may need to add in dependent on your vehicle. And some of those auxiliary things would be a stoplight switch, a charge line, a high-low adapter. On our case, a 12-volt outlet kit for the portable braking system. But the main basics that you're going to want to focus on first are going to be the base plate, which is going to attach to the frame of the vehicle and create the structural mounting point for all of your components to go on and safely tow the vehicle down the road. The connection point between your base plate and the hitch on the RV is your tow bar, and the tow bar again is just that connection point. But we also have safety cables, which are just like towing a trailer. You would have your safety chains. These are there just in case of a disconnect. If you forget to hook any of this up, it's still going to keep the vehicle attached. You also have diode wiring, which will transmit the light signals from the RV to the towed vehicle. So that's going to be your running lights, your brake lights, as well as your turn signals. And in some cases, some of your braking systems, like the Stay and Play Duo, require the diode wiring to be tapped into to get the signal to start braking. We also have our braking system, which today we have a Blue Ox Patriot portable system, but all of them are going to have a breakaway switch, and that's in case of everything failing. This will pull and put the brakes on the vehicle. That way it's not rolling down the highway. Now your diode wiring just cuts into your factory taillights to get that stop and turn, as well as your running lights, and that may seem a little bit scary, but these are super reliable and you really don't have any issues. And also the diode makes sure that it's not going to damage anything or cause any electrical issues long term with your vehicle while normally driving. And all of it's going to be transmitted via the 6-pole plug in front, which you can pick up a diode kit that has that. Sometimes your tow bars will come with it, or you can pick it up individually when piecing together your flat tow components. Just make sure you have that. That's where it's going to tie in. Your diodes are also a good chance when running them to get a charge line in place, because it's going to use that same 6-pole. Now it's pretty easy as far as the installation goes. You essentially take the spool of wire, you'll start at the front, and then just route that back nice and safe, following some factory wire loom, and then splitting off to both sides. We have a jumper wire that goes from running light to running light, and I'm going to walk you through all those steps to make sure you get them installed. So let's take a look at that. Something you're going to want to consider with diode wiring is what braking system are you using. Some of them tie into the diode wiring, so it makes sense to pull up an extra length to make those connections. The Stay and Play Duo is the first one that comes to mind. We're doing a portable braking system. We're using the Blue Ox Patriot, so we don't have to worry about that. But again, just to save yourself a little bit of trouble, if you're doing the Stay and Play, pulling that extra loop up, taping off maybe about a foot or so before running back down through the firewall or by the firewall in the engine bay is going to make your life a lot easier. As far as running back, there's a few things that you're going to want to take in consideration. Stay away from any moving things, whether it be suspension, drive shafts, axles, anything hot, so your exhaust, and really any sharp corners that could damage the wire. Something else that you'll also want to take in consideration is if you're running your diode wiring and you're doing a charge line, now would be the time to get that charge line wiring at least placed up here, because that'll tie into your 6-pole, and you're going to want to do that all at once. We're not doing a charge line system, so ours is a pretty straightforward diode installation. So what I did is just where we're going to mount our 6-pole, I taped off an extra length. Give yourself just a little bit of extra wiggle room. That way when you attach the wires, you're not right here with a wire stripper. It can get a little bit tricky if you don't leave that extra. So I just taped this up. And from here, I tried to use a lot of the factory wire loom. So I went on our passenger side to avoid a lot of the exhaust and just kind of zip tied it up as we go. It does get close to the exhaust as we get here, but I just utilized some of the factory holes, went down here, and then back to wire loom. Now, here I put a ring terminal and a self-tapping screw. You're going to want to ground this to the chassis, And something that I recommend is doing it fairly far forward. If you can use a factory ground, by all means. But this is twofold. You'll get your ground, but you're also going to save the rest of that white wire, and that can become a jumper wire for your running lights. So that way you don't have to pick up any extra wire. You can just ground it up here. You can really pick anywhere you want as long as it's a solid chassis ground. You can drill that in or use that factory one as I mentioned. And then I just passed our wires underneath, or kind of in our fuel tank area, and that makes a nice long pass where it's protected. Now once I made my way over the fuel tank, I went to our rear cross member here, and this is where I split the wires again. Our green is going to be our right turn signal, so that's going to head over to the passenger side of the vehicle. And this I just went over the cross member, and there's a shock mount here that has some holes. I left the zip ties so you guys can see it at home, but I made my way over, again staying away as far from the exhaust as I can, and then I passed it through the body mount on the back side, wrapped it through here, and then I just left this extra length. Now this white wire is that excess that I cut from where we had the ground, and I just ran this across our rear bumper beam, and that way we can tie into our running lights on both sides. Now the yellow and brown, this is going to go obviously to the driver's side, and so I just split that off at the same spot here and kind of followed the same path. I used the cross member, and then I used the shock mount, and then just kind of made my way, used the isolator hanger, and then through this hole again. So we have both of our wires on both sides that we need. So now we need to get our taillights taken out, and we'll get these pulled up. To remove our taillights, you're going to see that there's just 4 Phillips head screws. We'll go ahead and get these removed on both sides. Now with just a little wiggle there, we can get this popped out. And what we'll do is we're going to unplug. This one has a tab right here. Just press down on that. We should be able to get this separated. We'll just put our tail light in the back here to keep it safe. And I'll go ahead and get the other side taken out as well. You'll see that there's going to be some insulation or tape that's going to be wrapped around our wires, and we're going to be tying back a little bit further than where our plug is. So what you're going to want to do is just get that tape cut back. If you can peel it back by hand, by all means, go ahead and do that. The main thing is you're splitting this, make sure you're not damaging the wire. So just take your time, get this peeled back. This one kind of tees into some wire loom here, so if we kind of just peel it back to there, we should be good. And we can go ahead and do that on both sides. So with that insulation peeled back, we have our wires exposed. Now we're going to want to pull up our wires that we ran to the back of the vehicle. I'm using an airline tube as a pull wire. You can really use anything to kind of feed it through the hole that's in there. Tape that up, and then you can pull up your wires. And double check underneath that it's pulled up nice and clean. Sometimes it'll wrap around things that you don't want it to. And so we'll get our wires pulled up on both sides. So with our wires pulled up, we're ready to cut into our factory taillight wiring, which is generally the scary part for a lot of people. Now, a lot of times from year to year, sometimes the wires will change. If yours is a 2018 like this, more than likely you're going to be able to follow this. But if you want to check on your own, what you can do is take a light tester and on the prongs here, just run through the running lights, the brakes, and turn signals, and make sure that it's going accordingly, and just get those wires marked. That way you know what to cut into. The ones that we're going to be doing on our driver's side are going to be white with green and white with orange. So I just kind of got these separated here. I'm going to go ahead and just make a cut. And we're going to strip back both wires on both ends. And then grab your diodes, and you're going to pull off the spade connectors. We're going to need 4 of them here. And make sure you're just grabbing the blue ones. This yellow one we're going to be using a little bit later. It's for the 2 wires to tie in. So for now on these wires, we'll just kind of twist these, make sure that we have all the little fine wires together, and we're going to crimp this down. Now, if you want to, you can strip this back a little bit further, bend it so it has a little bit better bite, but generally if you put a good crimp on here, it should be fine. But something I'll recommend anytime making electrical connections with crimpers is once you crimp this down, just give it a quick tug. Sometimes you may think it's on there good and it'll just fall off, and you don't want to go back and have to trace those. So we'll go through, get our blue spade connectors on all 4 of these wires. Grab 2 of your diodes, and on the out you're going to see that there's 1 male spade connector here, and we're just going to take the out and it's going to go towards our plugs. So we'll put 1 on each of these. And then pretty easy here, just take the corresponding color and match it up to that same diode. It doesn't matter which one you use here up top, just make sure that it's the same color wire going to the same diode. And that leaves us with 2 open ones, and that's where we're going to tie these in. So let's start with the yellow wire. We obviously have quite a bit of extra slack here, so I'm just going to kind of cut the excess. And we're going to strip this back. And this is going to be for the turn signal, which is going to be our stop and turn. They're combined, and that's going to be the white with the green. So take that yellow wire and then make your connection on the diode with the white and green. And then that'll leave us with our brown and white. And as we know, that white wire jumpers over. It's going to share that running light signal with the other side. So this is where that yellow spade connector comes into play. So I'm going to strip back a little bit more than the others. That way I can kind of tie these together. And just kind of twist them. And then grab the yellow spade connector and crimp this down. And then since this is our running light, this is going to go to the orange and white. Now, with these all connected, there's double-sided tape on the diodes. So what I like to do is peel one of them off and stick these together. And you don't want any stress put on these wires to where they can pull off the spade connectors or the spade connectors coming off the diodes. So what I'm going to do is take some electrical tape and wrap it around all of it just to kind of make sure that this is tidied up. And then from there, we can plug this back into our taillight and get this side installed and head over to the other side. Here on our passenger side, it's going to be very much the same. We do change wire colors. So the ones that we're going to be tying into are going to be the white with purple and the white with yellow. And from there, our running light, which is our white jumper wire, will go to the white with purple. And then our green, which is going to be our right turn signal, will go to the white with yellow. So go ahead and we'll get this all taped up, both of our taillights put back in place, and then we'll head up front to where we can attach it to our 6-pole. Now to connect this to our 6-pole is super easy. The diode kit, you can generally get this in a combo with the 6-pole. Sometimes a tow bar will come with one. Either way, just make sure when putting together all your flat tow components, you have one of these. This is how you're going to get your all your signals from your RV to your towed vehicle. So what we'll do here is there's a boot that's on the back side. We're just going to take this, we're going to slide that back, and we're going to split these wires up. And I'll mention again, if you do have a charge line that you're putting in, this is going to be the time that you're going to want to have that handy, at least to get this into the 6-pole. So as we kind of peel this back, we'll strip these back also. And on this 6-pole, we have some small Phillips head screws, and this is how those wires are going to stay in place. So you're going to back these out just enough to get that wire through, but you're going to want to make sure you don't take these out completely. These are really tiny. If you drop them, you're going to have a rough time not only finding them, but also threading them back in. Now, if you have the charge line, it's going to use this taller center post, so that's where we'll start normally. But on our 6-pole, you're going to have letters that are molded into it, and that's going to tell us exactly where we need to put our wires. Now I've gone ahead and got these all in place. Now when tightening these down, make sure it's snug, but you don't want to get too crazy. You don't want to damage the wires. So at our 12 o'clock position, it'll be marked TM. That's our tail markers. That's going to be our running light wire, which is brown. We then have GD, which is going to be ground. That's going to be white. Left turn is LT, which is going to be yellow. RT is right turn. That's going to be our green. Now, something that we do here, just for a little added protection, is use RTV silicone just to seal this up. It lives on the front of your vehicle, so if you're driving through rain or any weather, it's going to see it. So you want to make sure that long term our connections are going to stay nice and protected. So I'm just going to kind of goop this up around here, making sure it's all nice and coated. And you can see I have quite a bit of extra wire. That's not a bad thing, because if you ever have to replace this plug, or say you want to add in a charge line or something later on, you can always cut that and then redo it and not have to worry about being short on wire. So at this point, we'll slide the boot on. And then going along with that added protection, take some electrical tape and wrap it around where the boot goes onto the plastic. And I'll just kind of keep my tape here. And something else that you may want to do, just to give it a cleaner look, is take the wire loom that's included. I'm going to feed this on our wires. And where it goes into the boot, if you just kind of overlap it, you can make it a smaller diameter and feed that into the boot. And then we can tape that up, giving it a nice seal on our plug. So with all that tidied up, we'll go ahead and get this mounted on our base plate. And depending on your base plate, some of them, we have a Blue Ox here. It's got these tabs that allows you to get these self-tapping screws in there. So we'll go ahead, feed those in, tighten it down. And that's going to be the installation for the diodes. But before we hit the road, we're going to want to check to make sure that they work. And we're going to be using a test box that's going to simulate the 7-pole that's on your RV. You probably don't have one of those at home, not to worry. You're just going to take your umbilical, hook it up to your 6-pole and then the 7-pole on your RV, run through the light signals, and check the back of the vehicle to make sure that they're corresponding properly. First, we'll start off with our running lights. Next, we'll do our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then finally our brakes. And that was a look at installation of the Roadmaster Diode Wiring on 2018 Jeep Wrangler JK.